I want to start today by asking you a question. It sounds pretty simple on the surface, but if you actually let it sit there for a minute, it can get a little uncomfortable.
I like the uncomfortable questions. Let's hear it.
Okay, what is the actual engine driving your choices? And I don't just mean the big, cinematic life decisions.
Like who you marry or where you move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Tuesday afternoon choices. When you decide to stay late at the office, even when you don't really have to,
Hmm.
or you buy that car that stretches the budget just a little bit, or you swallow your honest opinion at a dinner party because you can tell everyone else disagrees.
Right.
What's running the show in that moment?
It's really the fundamental question of motivation, isn't it? And usually we tell ourselves a nice, polite story about it. We say, oh, I'm just being responsible, or I'm being practical,
Right.
I'm doing it for the family, or I'm keeping my options open. Exactly. We rationalize. But the source material we are diving into today argues that there's something much deeper and honestly much more rigid running the show. It suggests that every single one of us has a center.
A center.
Think of it like a pair of glasses that you can't take off. It's your core paradigm. It's the lens through which you see reality, judge people, and make every single decision. And here's the catch. Most of us have no idea what our center actually is.
We think we know, but we're probably wrong.
We're usually wrong.
That's a scary thought. The idea that we're operating on an OS we haven't even audited. So today we're looking at a fascinating breakdown of the most common human centers. We've got money, work, possessions, pleasure, and friends.
And the goal here isn't just to describe them, like a list in a textbook. We're going to audit them. The source material provides a really rigorous framework, almost like a stress test, to see if your center is actually serving you.
Or if it's making you fragile.
Exactly.
And to do that stress test, we need to understand the metrics. The text calls them the 4 dimensions. Before we start dragging ourselves for being obsessed with our jobs, we need to define these terms.
Right, because the author uses them in a very specific way. They're like the 4 vital signs of your personality. They are security, guidance, wisdom, and power.
Let's unpack those, because power in this context doesn't mean what we think it means. Let's start with security.
Security is your foundation. It's your sense of worth, your emotional anchorage. If you think of your life as a ship, security is the hull. It's your basic strength, your self-esteem.
So when it's high, you feel unshakable.
Unshakable. But when it's low, you feel incredibly vulnerable, like a stiff breeze could just capsize you.
Okay, so security is the hull. Next is guidance.
Is that like a map?
A map or a GPS,
Yeah.
yeah. Guidance is your source of direction. It's the internal standard you use to make decisions. When you're at a crossroads, your guidance system is what tells you go left or go right.
It answers the question, what's the most important thing to do right now?
Then there's wisdom. This one feels a bit more abstract. Is it just about being smart?
Not exactly. In this framework, wisdom is your perspective on life. It's your sense of balance. It's how you see all the different parts relating to each other. It's the difference between seeing a single puzzle piece and, seeing the whole picture.
So someone with low wisdom might be a genius at their job, but totally clueless about why their partner is upset.
Precisely. They lack the context, the bigger picture.
And finally, power.
Power is the capacity to act. It's the strength and potency to actually accomplish things. It's that vital energy to change your habits, to learn a new skill, to change your situation. It's the engine of the ship.
Okay. Security is the hull, guidance is the GPS, wisdom is the map, and power is the engine. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to take your life, and honestly my life too, and audit it against 5 very common centers using those 4 metrics. And fair warning, the source material is pretty ruthless.
It pulls no punches. This might feel a little personal.
It really does. It exposes where our security and our power might be leaking away without us even realizing it. So let's jump into the first segment, the economic traps.
Let's do it.
We're talking about being money-centered and possession-centered. Now, being money-centered, on the surface, this just sounds like being a responsible adult, right?
Yeah.
We live in a capitalist society. You need money.
Absolutely. And that's why this one is so tricky. No one is arguing that having money is bad. But there is a huge difference between having money as a resource and having it as a center.
So how do we tell the difference? I mean, I check my bank account pretty often. Does that make being money-centered?
Not necessarily. To tell the difference, you have to look at the security dimension. The text says it very clearly. If you are money-centered, your personal worth is determined by your net worth.
Oof. Personal worth is determined by net worth. That hurts.
It's a very precarious way to live because if your security is tied to your net worth, your emotional stability is basically tied to the stock market.
So if the market dips 10%, your actual sense of self dips 10% with it.
Precisely. The text says you are vulnerable to anything that threatens your economic security. You become hyper-reactive. You're checking the apps constantly. A bad quarter isn't just a professional problem. It's an existential crisis because your security has been breached.
It's a total roller coaster. You're up when the line goes up, down when it goes down. Okay, what about guidance? How does a money-centered person make choices?
The text is really blunt here. It says, profit is your decision-making criterion.
Just profit. That seems a little cartoonish.
Well, it can be subtle. It's the filter.
Yeah.
Every choice about family, your career, even ethics is run through that calculator of will this make money or will this save money?
Can you give me an example of how that warps things?
Sure. Imagine you're deciding whether to visit a sick relative. If you're truly money-centered, your guidance system kicks in and says, well, the flight costs this much, and I'll miss 2 days of work, which is a loss of X dollars. You might still go, but that friction is there. You see the relationship as a transaction.
And that leads directly into wisdom.
Right. The text says, money-making is the lens through which life is seen and understood, creating imbalanced judgment.
Imbalanced judgment. That's an interesting phrase. It implies you're literally not seeing reality clearly.
You aren't. You're blind to values that don't have a dollar sign. You can't really appreciate a beautiful sunset because you can't sell it. You might struggle to value time spent with your kids if it feels unproductive. You're just missing huge chunks of the data.
And that brings us to power. You'd think having money gives you unlimited power. I mean, the saying is money's a power, right?
But the source argues the opposite. It says, you are restricted to what you can accomplish with money and your limited vision.
So if a problem can't be solved by writing a check, you're basically powerless.
Correct. If your marriage is falling apart, you can't just purchase intimacy. If your health is failing, you can't buy your way out of it forever. If money is your only tool, you are incredibly weak in the areas that matter most.
That is a vital distinction. Okay, let's pivot slightly to the cousin of the money center, the possession-centered profile. This feels like a more nuanced difference.
It is nuanced. Money is often about the accumulation of the resource itself, the number in the bank. Possession-centered is about the manifestation of that. It's about reputation, social status, and tangible things.
The flex.
Exactly. The text says your security here is based on your reputation, your social status, or the tangible things you possess.
So this is the keeping up with the Joneses center. I'll admit, I've fallen for this. Buying a gadget not because I needed it, but because I wanted to be the guy with the cool new thing.
I think we all have. But notice the trap the text points out. You tend to compare what you have to what others have. Your security isn't internal, it's comparative. You only feel good if you have more than the guy next door.
That sounds absolutely exhausting.
Yeah.
Because there's always someone with a bigger boat.
Always. And look at guidance. The source says you make decisions based on what will protect, increase, or better display your possessions.
Better display. That's such a specific call-out. It's not just having a nice car. It's making sure you drive it to the right places so people see it.
Right. And this warps your wisdom. The text says you see the world in terms of comparative economic and social relationships. You're not seeing people as people. You're seeing them as competitors or an audience.
It just objectifies everyone around you. And I'm guessing the power dimension is capped here too.
For sure. You function within the limits of what you can buy or the social prominence you can achieve. If you lose your status or if you're in a situation where your title doesn't matter, like a real crisis, you have zero power.
It really highlights how external these things are. You're handing the keys to your happiness over to something you can lose in a heartbeat.
Which is a perfect segue to the next center. I think this is one a lot of high achievers fall into.
The work-centered life.
The work-centered life.
Oh boy, this one's gonna sting. Our culture worships the grind. I am my job. It's the first question we ask at parties, right? So what do you do?
Correct. And that is literally the definition of security in this text for the work-centered person. It reads, you tend to define yourself by your occupational role. And here's the kicker. You are only comfortable when you're working.
Only comfortable when you are working. That explains the Sunday scaries. Or why vacations can be so stressful for some people. If you take away the work, you take away their identity.
Exactly. You lose your anchorage. Without the task, without an email to answer, you don't know who you are. You feel adrift.
And this must bleed into guidance. How do you make decisions?
You make them based on the needs and expectations of your work.
So work doesn't just take up your time. It dictates your moral compass.
It becomes the primary filter. I can't make it to the school play because of this project. I can't prioritize my health because of the deadline. The work is the master. You are the servant.
And that shrinks your wisdom.
Specifically, the source says you tend to be limited to your work role. You become a hammer, and the whole world looks like a nail. You start managing your family like they're your employees or treating your friends like networking contacts.
That hits home. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. I usually associate work with power. The CEO, the mover and shaker. But the source material just destroys that idea in the power section.
It totally flips the script. It says your actions are limited by work role models, organizational constraints, your boss's perceptions, and your possible inability at some point in your life to do that particular work.
Wow. Okay, break that down. Boss's perceptions.
Think about it. If your power comes from your title, then your power is actually held by the person who gave you that title. You think you're powerful, but you're actually boxed in by AUKUS politics. You're a cog. A very busy, very stressed cog, but a cog nonetheless.
And the text mentioned the physical aspect, too. Your inability at some point to do that work.
This is the mortality check. If your power comes from being able to work 80 hours a week, what happens when you get sick? What happens when you age? What happens when your skills become obsolete?
Your power just evaporates.
Instantly. Because it was never inherent in you. It was inherent in the role. And roles can always be taken away.
That is a heavy realization. Okay, let's shift gears. We've done the economic and the professional. Now let's talk about the emotional ones. Pleasure-centered and friend-centered.
And these are often reactions to the stress of the other centers. People burn out on work, so they swing to pleasure. They feel lonely chasing money, so they swing to friends.
And the text is shockingly harsh on the pleasure-centered life. I mean, who doesn't like fun? But the analysis of security here is, it's bleak.
It is bleak. It says, you feel secure only when you're on a pleasure high, and then it drops this line. Your security is short-lived, anesthetizing, and dependent on your environment.
Anesthetizing. That's the word that jumped out at me. It implies you're not actually happy, you're just numbing yourself.
It's pure escapism. And because it's short-lived, you constantly need a new hit, a new trip, a new show, a new meal, just to feel okay. It's the law of diminishing returns. The second cookie never tastes as good as the first.
And the guidance is pretty predictable, but look at the wisdom section. You see the world in terms of what's in it for you.
It creates a totally narcissistic worldview, but not in a powerful way. In fact, when you look at the power dimension, the text delivers maybe its most cutting insult of the whole document.
Read it.
Your power is almost negligible.
Negligible. Ouch.
But it makes sense, right? If you're just chasing impulses, you aren't leading your life. Your appetites are. You have no capacity to do anything difficult or long-term because you can't get past that need for immediate gratification.
So you can't build a business, can't stick to a diet, can't maintain a difficult relationship. You're powerless against your own urges.
Right. It's the ultimate weakness disguised as living the good life.
Okay, let's talk about the last one. Friend-centered. This sounds nice, doesn't it? Valuing relationships. But the text calls it a trap.
It's a trap because of where the control is. For the friend-centered person, security is a function of the social mirror.
The social mirror. I love that term. What does it actually look like?
It means you don't know who you are until someone else tells you. The text says, you are highly dependent on the opinion of others. You walk into a room and you scan people's faces to see how they're reacting to you before you even know how you feel.
And it mentions being easily embarrassed. That's such a specific detail that highlights the vulnerability. If your security depends on others liking you, a weird look can ruin your whole day.
Precisely. And for guidance, the decision-making criterion is simple. What will they think?
That is just paralyzing. You can't make a move without polling the audience. Do you guys think I should take this job? What do you think of this person I'm dating?
And while our source material cuts off the specific definitions for wisdom and power here, we can see the trajectory. If your guidance is, what will they think? Your power is effectively zero. You've outsourced your agency to the group.
You just become a chameleon. You change colors to match whatever room you're in, which means there's no real you underneath it all.
Exactly.
So we've unpacked these 5 centers: money, work, possessions, pleasure, friends, and honestly, it's a bit of a bloodbath.
It is. It's a rigorous dismantling of the things we usually cling to for safety.
I think everyone listening and us talking can probably see bits of ourselves in at least a couple of these.
Oh, absolutely. Most of us oscillate. We might be work-centered during the week and then pleasure-centered on the weekend.
But when you pull back and look at all five, what's the common thread? What makes all of them so flawed, according to this framework?
The common thread is dependency.
Say more about that.
Look at where security comes from in all of them. In money, it's the market. In work, it's your boss. In possessions, it's your status. In pleasure, it's the environment. In friends, it's someone else's opinion.
They're all external.
Yes. They are all things outside of your direct control. And because they're external, they can change in an instant. Markets crash, bosses fire people, trends change, friends move away.
And if your center is built on something that changes,
Then your sense of self is constantly under threat. You live in a state of low-level anxiety because deep down, you know the foundation could crack at any moment.
it creates a reactive life. You're not driving the car. You're in the passenger seat. And your job or your bank account or your social circle is at the wheel.
And that's why the power dimension is so limited in all of them. The text kept using words like restricted, limited, negligible. When you anchor yourself to these things, you give your power away to them.
And your wisdom gets totally distorted.
Yeah.
You end up looking at the whole world through a keyhole. You see one thing very clearly, like profit or social status, but you miss the entire room.
It's like wearing red tinted glasses. You see all the red things perfectly, but you can't even tell that blue and green exist.
So what does this all mean for the listener? We're not saying money is bad or work is bad or friends are bad. I want to be clear about that.
Not at all. That's a crucial distinction. We need all those things. The problem isn't the things themselves. The problem is their placement.
It's about the hierarchy.
Exactly. It's about what sits in the very center of your map. If money is a tool, that's great. If money is the master, you're in trouble. If work is an outlet, that's wonderful. If work is your identity, you're vulnerable.
So it's a call to awareness. I think the value of this deep dive is just realizing, oh, wow, I made that decision yesterday purely because I was feeling insecure about my status. Just seeing the lens helps you take the glasses off, even for a moment.
Awareness is the first step. You have to realize you're wearing the tinted glasses before you can even think about switching them for clear ones.
So as we wrap up, we want to leave you with a thought to chew on. We've spent this whole time critiquing centers that are based on things that change. Money changes, moods change, opinions change. And this framework clearly shows that centering your life on changeable things leads to vulnerability.
It's a recipe for anxiety.
So the provocative question is this. If centering your life on things that change makes you weak, what would happen if you centered your life on something unchanging?
That is the ultimate question.
What would that even look like? I mean, what is something that doesn't change? Principles,
Yeah.
integrity.
That's the investigation for you to take away. The source material does hint at a principle-centered life, but that's a whole other deep dive. For now, just ask yourself this. If you could anchor your security, your guidance, your wisdom, and your power in something that the stock market or your boss couldn't touch, how would that change your daily decisions?
It's a game changer of a question. It suggests a level of freedom that feels almost impossible, but definitely worth chasing.
Absolutely. It's the difference between being a leaf in the wind and being a tree with deep roots.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. This was a heavy one, but a necessary one.
Always a pleasure to explore the map.
We'll see you next time. Keep diving.